today's reading. To Rama, who questioned Vishishta, which is that big mirror in which all of this is mere reflection? What is the heart of all souls or creatures in this universe? Vashishta replied, all creatures in this universe have two kinds of hearts, one to be taken note of and the other ignored. Here are their respective traits. The one to be ignored is the physical organ called the heart, which is situated in the chest as part of the perishable body. The one to be taken note of is the heart, which is of the nature of consciousness. It is both inside and outside, and has neither an inside nor an outside. This is the really important heart. It is the mirror which holds all reflections. It is the basis and source of all objects and all kinds of wealth. Therefore, it is only consciousness which is the heart of all, not that organ, a small part of the body, which is insentient like a stone and perishable. So one can achieve the eradication of all desires and control of breath by the practice of merging the mind in the heart, which is pure consciousness. Concentrating one's thoughts solely on the self will lead to happiness or bliss. Drawing in the thoughts, restraining them, and preventing them from going outwards is called vairagya, dispassion. Fixing them in the self is sadhana, practice. Concentrating on the heart is the same as concentrating on the self. The heart is another name for the self. The self is the heart. The heart is self-luminous. Light arises from the heart and reaches the brain, which is the seat of the mind. The world is seen with the mind. That is, by the reflected light of the self. It is perceived with the aid of the mind. When the mind is illumined, it is aware of the world. When it is not itself so illumined, it is not aware of the world. If the mind is turned inwards, toward the source of light, objective knowledge ceases, and the self alone shines forth as the heart. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. I love this particular description that Sri Ramana gives of the heart, because he includes in this description the understanding that mind, world, heart, all of it is one. And he also includes in this brief description the way in which we can realize this for ourselves, and that is to turn away from the thoughts and to plunge deeply into the heart of being. Even using the mind, asking this question, who am I? What is this? We don't need to do that. In other places, he also indicates that the best thing we can do for ourselves to realize the self, the heart, is to keep quiet. So this includes even all of the thoughts in the mind. So while our practice and our mind and all of that is part of this way of turning in, it's not essential. And we can just simply remain quiet. But this is not an easy thing for most of us to do. This idea of being, knowing ourselves as being, consciousness and bliss, rather than always relating to ourselves as the doer, the thinker. This is our challenge most of the time, isn't it? Thoughts are triggered very easily in the mind, and then we go happily following them along until we stub our toe on one of them, and then we try to reject them. So in this passage, one of the things that Ramana is explaining to us is that it's important for us to just continually keep turning in, keep turning away from the thoughts, and coming back to this self or the heart, which is really not a place, is it? He describes it, he says it's both inner and outer. It's neither inner nor outer. So what he's really describing here and what he's talking about and pointing us toward is this natural state of being, of knowing, not in the mind, but experientially. I exist. I'm here. This root or base feeling that we always have with us at all times when we're in the waking state. We always know that we are here, even if the mind is disturbed or the body's engaged in some activity or some work or whatever. We know that we are here all during that time. We have a tendency to forget it and have that recognition of the feeling state, I exist or I am here. Have that get covered over by the thoughts or the activity or whatever. But because it's neither inner nor outer, it's neither here nor there, what he's really saying to us is, if we stay in touch with this feeling, I exist, I am here, I am aware, this kind of feeling state, if this remains with us under all circumstances, then we become more and more dispassionate toward everything that's going on. And this is not a feeling state that causes us to detach, become cold, withdrawn, dissociative toward life, but rather just comes to recognize that the free flow of life is going on, and we can just let it happen. But in our own knowing, we are free of all of the states of mind and body, all of the activity of mind and body. We are simply here, as that which is aware, as consciousness, the heart, and you are that. So whether we call the heart, or consciousness itself, or love, or the soul, or God, makes no difference. What we're always being pointed back toward by Sri Ramana and all the sages is this recognition that we exist in the pure state of existence. Not we exist as this or that, as male or female, as old or young, as rich or poor, as healthy or unhealthy. Not those kinds of definitions of existence, but rather the pure existence that we are here as consciousness itself, as awareness. And that when we come to this place, which he refers to as the self or the heart, what we experience is not a fabricated sense of happiness, but the happiness of true knowing that I am that which is aware, and that this awareness is eternal, unborn, and undying. And that though this body may come and go, and these thoughts may come and go, and these experiences may come and go, none of that is me. That this awareness, which is unborn and undying, and is manifest in all of us as awareness, is the free and unborn state of consciousness itself. This is why it's referred to as the self. This is not referring to the body and the mind. This self is the self of consciousness which radiates and shines from the heart as all of us and as all of this, and causes us to say, and all of this is that, or all of this is the divine, or all of this is God. It shows us, through our own experience, there is no separation here. All is one. And all separation, if it's perceived or felt to exist, is existing only in the mind. And so, as sadhaks, as people who are doing sadhana, practice, to understand this vital truth, we keep coming back to this state of lack of interest in the thoughts. And we simply allow ourselves to be here, in the center of being, as awareness itself. And by taking up this practice, we come to understand that there is nothing but awareness, and I am that. And everything else is flowing by, like sticks and branches on a river, and I am that consciousness, which is there like the bank, watching as all the flotsam and jetsam, as all the positive and negative, as all the happiness and sadness that constitutes life flows by. But this consciousness, which I am, is free, unaffected by the movement of the river or the stream. And in fact, this consciousness illumines and gives life to all that is seen, all that is perceived, all that is experienced. This consciousness, this awareness is the foundation for everything that is here. Without separation, all of this is that. And with this understanding, we can embrace life just as it is, For some of us, as it is, we'll be busy, engaged, involved in many different ways. And for others, it will be very quiet. It's not the outward sign of the way that a life manifests that tells us whether or not consciousness has been realized, whether or not the self or the heart have been realized. So we can stop judging ourselves for whatever form our life starts to take or happens to take at any given moment. We can just keep realizing that whatever form it's taking, whatever dance we are doing, I am both before that and also dancing as the dance. I am silence and not silence. I am movement and not movement. I am understanding and misunderstanding. All of this is the movement of life itself. Our task is to let life be as it is without identifying with anything other than that which is before all movement and makes all movement knowable. It's only against silence, stillness, that the movement of our everyday activity, our minds, can be seen. And because of this duality, we've cultivated the habit, the conditioning of seeing things on one side of the duality or on the other side. Our task, though, as practitioners, as sadhaks, is to come to understand and to see and to know directly the unity of one, that all of this is that, and be happy. We do this by just continually keep letting go. Life requires us to do this anyway, doesn't it? No matter how we try to hold on to something, somebody, some situation, our bank account, our career, no matter how we try to hold on, no matter what our strategy is, all strategies that involve holding on will fail, and we will be required by life to let go, to keep flowing along with the river. We don't really have a choice about it, and yet we spend a great deal of our lives trying to get things to remain the same, trying to get things to stop changing, stop moving, trying to control the externals so that we'll feel comfortable, so that we won't feel pain. But it's only when we go deeply inside, following that light of consciousness into the heart of being, that we truly come to know stillness, and come to realize and understand that we are that stillness itself, and everything else is the flow of life, and all of it is one dance. This is why in Hinduism there's always this pairing that goes on of Shiva and Shakti. This is the pointer toward this truth. Shiva represents stillness, firmness, solidity, the mountain. This is why Arunachala is often referred to as Lord Shiva himself, because this metaphor of the mountain, this presence of the mountain, can be clearly seen that nothing is moving. And yet on the surface of the mountain, animals are living, people are walking, trees are growing, plants are dying, flowers are blooming, birds are flying, monkeys are living, monkeys are dying, people are dying, and the mountain remains still and remains there. This is the symbolism of Arunachala and Lord Shiva, is this stillness. Shiva is always paired with Shakti. Shakti is that manifested energy which is coming into being and going out of being. And so the mountain is represented by Lord Shiva. Shakti is represented by all of the activity that's going on the surface of the mountain. And they are one. They're not separate. They can't be separated. You take away the mountain, you take away all of the life that lives on it. You take away all of the life on the mountain is just there, a dead rock. It's not life. So life is the blending together, the manifesting together of silence and activity, of silence and sound, of non-activity and sound and activity. All of these things are going on together at the same time as part of the dance of life. And as we become more and more capable in our practice, we are able to see more and more that we are both the stillness and the activity of our own lives and of all beings. This is the activity of life itself. If you take away one half of the equation, or try to separate out the natural stillness which is in the heart of your own being with the activity of your own life, you will feel pain, you will suffer. But if you hold to the stillness of your own being, to the stillness of the self, to the heart, to the unmoving recognition of yourself as a mountain, then you will dance without worry or concern when it's time to dance. You will embrace both aspects of life without fear. So make this recognition of life as the manifestation of Shiva and Shakti your goal, to understand that your life is both stillness and movement, joy and sorrow, life and death. None of these constitute who you are. You are that which is aware, unborn, undying, unmoving, always moving. All of this is yourself. very beautiful sitting here in this quiet and the rain, isn't it? I almost don't want to say anything. It seems like a disturbance to the space, you know. It's not true, but somehow. These days are so rare in the desert where it's just so quiet, and it seems as though everyone has stayed home in some way, in the heart, not home, out there, stayed home. These gray and dark, rainy days just have this natural way of turning us inside, don't they? Somehow it becomes easier.
Yes.
How are you?
Good.
Haven't seen you in a while. How have you been?
How was India?
Ah, India's good, yeah. For those of us who love India, you know, India's...
I'm glad you're healthy.
yeah, thank you. How's your winter been?
winter, good.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was, your words were beautiful today, but in some way, they shattered a kind of, last night we had friends over, and I don't know how I got to talk about Meister Eckhart and the nothingness. My friend asked, didn't you have some experience with that? And as I was talking, I said, I want to look inside, I'm nothing. And I really, I went back to that sense that I've had, the glimpses, that nothingness. I look outside, I'm everything. And that's love, that quote. But I really felt it, and it stayed with me since last night, all day today, until I was listening to you. I loved your words, but on the other hand, I was just like, I went into my mind instead of feeling.
Yes. Absolutely.
Instead of feeling the sense of being of nothing, and my friends looked at me. What do you mean you're nothing? And I couldn't. I go right now.
Yeah.
Right here. There. That's nothing. They're like looking at me like. It was more of a sense, is what I guess I'm saying. A sense of it doesn't go over very well verbally.
Right. Absolutely. The words fail. Yeah.
It really didn't go over very well, but it was more for myself, really. I think the speaking actually resonated more with me than anybody else.
Yeah.
Wait, but it was a sense of nothing. And now, right now at this moment, I don't sense that.
But you see, it's important to notice though that is the way in which the mind veils, because as soon as the mind becomes interested in something, no matter how lofty it may be, right? So I'm here talking.
Beautiful.
It's very beautiful. You know, it's pointing towards something. But if you're already in that something, that indefinable something, which is what you're describing, and you can say in this moment you're experiencing it as nothingness. But it's that indescribable nothingness, something. If you're already in that state, then this shows the way exactly that the mind veils our direct perception of that. How? Because as soon as we start to engage in the activity of the mind, which is words and thoughts and concepts and thinking, or we begin to listen to someone else who's trying to put forth thoughts, concepts, or ideas, or paint a lovely word picture, we begin to see right away that this drops a veil on this indefinable, indescribable something nothingness. So just notice that is what we refer to in Advaita as the veiling quality of the mind. That as soon as we engage anything conceptually. So the reason I point that out to you is just to say, yes, when you feel that expansive sense of nothingness, just stay there. Don't pick anything up. Don't try to define it, because you and I have talked about this a lot. The way that the experiences of here-ness, now-ness, emptiness, nothingness, godness disappear as soon as we try to wrap them in concepts. They are a direct experience, a direct perception. They are not something that can be intuited by the mind or understood by the mind or talked about by the mind. We try, especially in this kind of an environment where we're trying in a way to convey the indefinable for the sake of people who haven't had that experience yet. But we have to be very clear when someone has had that experience to say, yes, just stay there. We can stop talking now.
Well, that's what I did this morning. I spent a lot of time in meditation, and And I didn't pick up any books. I didn't pick up any. I didn't even listen to Muji, which I've been doing lots of, still listening to Muji.
Yeah.
And it was, when I was talking last night, I remember I was talking about how I sensed that at moments like when my mother died, that were crushing, there was this sense of a terrible event, and another part of me just kind of peaceful, just kind of, not detached, that's not the right word, but it was just kind of, look at that.
Yeah.
You know, look at that.
Yeah.
Your mother died. Or I was able to go back to even when my father was abusing me and I was in tears and everything, but there was some part that he couldn't touch.
Yes.
And I could sense that touch, that part that he was unable to touch.
Yes.
Yeah. And as I was sharing that last night, I sensed it. But anyhow,
so you can see then, if you look at the different kinds of experience that you had, that each time this sense of that which is unmoving, right, is there and present. You can see that unmovingness is actually the foundation, because all of the other experiences have moved and changed and been precipitated by different kinds of events, and right? But each one has led you to this understanding that there is this something, indefinable something, which really constitutes that stillness which is behind all of the experience. This is beautiful. It's when you understand this that you can become very interested in what doesn't move and less interested in what is passing by.
exactly.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't come and go.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's been a powerful
This discovery
question
of
for
what
me.
doesn't come and go. Yeah. Beautiful. This also begins to show us that all of our experience is here for reasons we don't quite necessarily understand or perceive in this moment. It may be not until years later, like you're sitting here now, so you can experience and explain, well, this is what it felt like yesterday, and this is what it felt like when I had that experience. This is what it felt like when Mother died. This is what it felt like when I was young and being abused. You can see that in all of those that there was a constant, and it's this unmoving knowing. And then we don't need to be so judgmental about the nature of the experiences. We can just be grateful that we've come to this place where we can see clearly that there is an unmoving, unborn, undying nature, which is there as the foundation of all experience. It's beautiful. In some ways we can even say that life itself is teaching us not to be attached. It just keeps showing us, it just keeps moving, it just keeps leaving, it just keeps changing, evolving, growing. And the whole time it's simply trying to show us or teach us that we don't need to be so deeply reactive to everything that's happening in our mind, body, and world. That there is within each of us this quality of awareness which is watching silently and in many ways remains unaffected, even though the body-mind may have a reaction to something, may have a response. Nonetheless, there is this place which is silent and watching. For many of us, well, if this is simply a psychological manifestation at that moment, it feels very dissociative. It feels like we've just sort of The shock of it all has just caused us to dissociate. But over time, we come to realize that that's not actually what happened. We may have dissociated in that moment for the sake of that being, especially if the being was a child. That may have actually happened. But it's also a pointer toward a deeper recognition that we are consciousness itself, that we are awareness, that we needn't be affected, and that we can actually voluntarily withdraw attention from those things, those situations that cause us to suffer. And that by withdrawing attention, we don't need to be dissociative. We can withdraw attention and simply withdraw it into the center of being. We don't need to go somewhere else in fantasy. We can just withdraw into the center of being. And if we're in the center of being, we're not only not dissociative, we're actually understanding the unity of everything that's happening in that moment. So now this is not a dissociative behavior. This is a behavior for integration, for acceptance, for love, for compassion. So we can bring this quality of love, compassion, understanding, and presence into all our interactions, into all our experiences, into all the comings and goings of life itself, while at the same time realizing, I am not these things. Rather, I am that which is the foundation of all these things, and that which is aware of them. Do you have something today?
I knew you were going to ask that.
There's just this feeling to talk to you. That's all that's happening. You can say no. It's all right.
I'm on day 2 of a fast,
Mhm.
which sort of changes perception of things.
Mhm.
For me, it's been positive. Kind of slows everything down, which has been a necessity for me. And in that, during the meditation, I noticed the tendency to be busy, even in my mind. It's the busyness. And at some point that calmed a bit, and just listening to the rain and sound, and there was sort of a point where there wasn't a separation, and there was just sound and observance of sound, and it was kind of all the same thing. And I don't know if it was the refrigerator or something came on over here, and it it made me
Oh yeah, I forgot to
kind of
unplug
shook
it
me.
today.
It was good though, but it was sort of
Yeah.
it made me laugh a little bit, just noticing, oh, I was really into it. But I really appreciated the metaphor of Shiva and Shakti, because that's what it felt like. And I noticed, like, one of the things last week, I was sort of disturbed, and realized that one of the reasons I was disturbed is I concentrate so hard on trying to find what you're pointing to. sometimes that
Yes.
I'm just missing it completely because I'm like irritating myself, you know, just
Yes,
like
yes,
just so clenched that I can't
yes.
I can't relax. Sometimes it's a matter of just kind of letting go
Right.
and
Beautiful. You see, that's to understand the limit of concentration is very important for people who are practitioners, because we're all taught right from the beginning that what we need to do is lose the ability for the distractive world to keep, attracting us. And the way that we're taught to do that is usually to concentrate on something. Concentrate on breath, concentrate on mantra, concentrate on japa, concentrate on something. But when we get to the point like you just described, that we realize that we can't do it that way anymore, now we need to open and include everything and take a broader perspective. This is very good, because what it indicates is that we don't need that kind of concentration so much now.
it was helpful. It's helpful to hear that too, because there was a part of my mind that I was sort of like, oh, this feels good to open up
Yes,
and just kind of see everything,
Yeah.
everything happening
yes.
very quickly.
See it all happening in one space.
And there was a part of my mind that went, no, you're supposed to be concentrating.
Yeah, yeah,
You know?
yeah,
But, yeah.
yeah. Well, of course, concentration is a great tool. It remains in our toolbox for a long time. When the mind is disturbed or we're having a difficult time, concentration can be very important. But it's equally important to allow that expansion of mind to happen, and to do it without fear. Yeah. Beautiful. Also, it's really nice, do understand that the instruction doesn't necessarily have to come from a book, a video, from outside us in some way. The instruction can just come by following what is here now. And then you naturally come to this place where you say, oh, I think what needs to happen here is I need to relax. And you open and relax. And that instruction comes from somewhere deep inside the self.
Yeah, I'm sometimes at odds with that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Why?
I don't know, the type of personality who wants to do what I'm supposed to.
Uh-huh.
Whatever that means, but that's a habit.
Well, now you just have to realize that sometimes doing what you're supposed to do means following that inner voice, so that you learn to be able to trust it. Because ultimately there is no other voice you can follow but your own. Not your own as a personality, but your own as an inner knowing. And to begin to understand that this very mind that you've been struggling with for such a long period of time is also the place where the answers lie in some way. That the answers themselves will come from the heart, but they will come to you through the mind. Not because they have to, but it's just because that's become an accepted pathway. If you come to believe your mind, then why doubt it when the heart starts to speak through it? Right? Doesn't make sense. Believe everything else the mind says, but if I say to you, you are that, and then the voice inside you says, I am that, which he's pointing toward, I am that awareness, I am that consciousness, I am that happiness, then you go, no, that's not true. But I'll believe these other things still, coming from my past. I'll accept those, but I won't accept that I am the heart of being. That I can't accept. So we have to become willing to test this out, and to know when the inner guidance is there, and to know that when the inner guidance is there, it's coming from a much deeper place. That's how we learn to trust it. As we have that experience, we say, oh, yes, relax, open up. And we do that, and it has a positive outcome. Then it's good to say to ourselves, yes, actually the heart is speaking to me at this moment. This is not the veil of the mind. This is the heart speaking to me, guiding me.
It was helpful to hear the example again of stillness and activity. It gave it because I realize both, and sometimes I just want one. You know, there's definitely the tendency for the duality.
To want one or the other.
Yeah.
Yes, but ultimately you have to come to understand that what we want to eventually come to, or we want to come to soon, as soon as possible, is the recognition that stillness is present in activity, and activity is present in stillness. That they're not two. They're just like the sides of a coin. If we look at one side of the coin, we feel the stillness within ourselves. If we look at the other side, we see the activity that the body-mind is engaged in. But over time, we can come to the place where the body-mind is just free to engage in whatever it's doing. And the recognition of stillness or silence within us is firm. So this is ultimately where we want to come to. This recognition that Shiva and Shakti are one and the same. It's the mind that wants to separate them into two separate things. There's this very beautiful, there's a statue that you see often, there's a huge one in Tiruvannamalai, but you don't see it very often in Hindu culture, but I can't remember exactly what this deity is called. But it's a beautiful statue because it's a statue that's split right down the center, and one side is Shiva, the male side, the other side is Shakti. So the female presentation, and they're together in this one deity. It's very beautiful, and it points the way to this recognition that what we're always doing is, in some ways, we're reconciling the apparent opposites that life presents to us, and realizing that within each of us, all of these bits and pieces come together and help to create the wholeness of our experience. Beautiful. Today I just sort of fell into this stillness before y'all got here, and I just didn't get a lot of things done. I didn't uncover the prasad, I didn't unplug the refrigerator, so many things didn't happen today because I was just like, this is this beautiful, wet, damp, dark day.
Rishi, I think for me, one of the benefits of this knowing and this practice, it seems like I'm more amused at what happened,
Nice.
what this apparent person, body mind, is up to at
Yeah.
one point in time. Like driving down here, just driving down the driveway and noticing, oh, this is usually the time that I, multitask in some way. It's like, isn't that interesting? Like, I don't have to even change that. Like, there's no interest
Yeah.
in even trying to alter that behavior. Just like, there it is. So what,
Yeah, so what? Very nice.
That's been it's like with the past conditioning of taking myself so seriously,
Yeah.
it has just been a real freedom to let that go.
Yeah. Very nice.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think a lot of times in my own life I've noticed too that when I stop struggling with myself, then the response that comes is kind of a laughter that happens. It's like just noticing the silliness that the mind engages in.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the habit patterns that the body engages in, it's all just kind of foolishness. And that it's all just okay.
Yeah. Like, here it goes again.
Yeah.
Oh well.
Yeah. And slowly over time, sometimes just by letting letting ourselves be firmly whatever is dancing, things do fall away. And, habits that we've had in the past of mind or body or whatever, they do fall away. But not when we're trying to struggle with them. Actually, more often if we're laughing at them. They start to, they loosen their grip. The conditioning loosens its grip. Yeah. This is partly what I mean when I'm talking about, when I say over and over, it's incumbent on us to lose interest in a lot of what goes on in our minds. It's just really helpful to lose interest in it. And helpful in the sense that it helps us to discover what's here and what's underlying this movie on the screen, which is where our attention usually is with the movie on the screen, or the writing on the whiteboard, the opinions and judgments that go along with that, writing on the whiteboard, and then we don't notice the whiteboard, we don't notice the screen that's behind the movie. So, very good, yeah. Sometimes laughter is the best medicine for that. Laughing at ourselves, seeing the cosmic joke of it all. Taking ourselves so seriously. If I realize I'm nothing, there's this nothingness. If I realize that, really truly take that into my own being, then how can I be very serious about any of it? We wouldn't be serious about the Three Stooges on the screen. So why would we be serious about ourselves when we're behaving like one of the Stooges? It all comes down to nothingness in the end.
Last night we were talking a little bit about politics, and I don't want to go there, but at one point the phrase, even the sun will, Eckhart Tolle says, even the sun will die.
Yes.
Somehow that gave me a sense of, it doesn't matter, it matters in a certain sense, and I donated actually, so I put my money where my mouth is, but in another sense, even, it doesn't matter, that even the sun will die. And for some reason that phrase, even the sun will die, just kind of gave me a bigger perspective.
Yeah.
of everything.
Yes, this comes directly out of the Buddhist teaching.
Or even the sun will die? Oh,
Yes, yes,
I didn't-
because the Buddha was very clear that the universes are born and dying all the time. He spoke about this. And so, he actually said to people, this is as a way of causing that kind of expansion or understanding, that you needed to realize that one day the earth will disappear. One day the solar system will disappear. One day the universe will disappear. Anything, because his teaching was principally rooted in anything which is born will die. So, is there anything, this question can rise, he didn't ask this, but Ramana did. Is there anything which is not born and which will not die? What remains?
Give your heart to that.
Yes.
And I said that last night when I was talking.
Cultures call it different things, consciousness,
Yeah.
God, eternity, we have these buzzwords for it. You were saying?
Well, I remember saying that last night to a friend. I just said, what's really important is give your heart to that doesn't come and go, that's
Yeah.
that even when the sun dies, that's what you want to give your heart to.
Yeah.
And the other things don't, what's more important, the things that, a thought that comes and goes, a feeling that comes and goes, your body that comes and goes, or that doesn't come and go. And that's what you want to give your heart to. And that's what I heard myself saying last night. It helps. It helps me think the bigger picture.
Yes.
That's what I mean when I say that even the sun will die. This gives me this bigger picture, and I think laughter is so much a part of that, because it you get so serious about my problems or my habits, and even those just conditioning. They're just conditioning. They may cause suffering, but even that's just comes and goes. It's not trying to be perfect. I think a lot of my spiritual journey is trying to be a certain, I messed up, the super ego.
Yes.
You shouldn't have said that, or you don't say
Yes.
that, or don't.
Yes.
All that preoccupation with some kind of image of a guru, not guru, of a spiritual person.
Yes.
I should be, after all these years, I should be at this level, or I shouldn't have those thoughts, or I shouldn't have all that, and it just makes it worse.
Yes.
Laughter is a much better
Yeah.
way to kind of treat it and say, there I go again. Well, look at that. Isn't that silly how I do that?
Yes.
It's just funny how
Yes.
that conditioning still gets me.
Yes.
It's amazing how that conditioning can still get me,
Yes.
but not be so serious about it.
Yes, and the true path is to come to realize that it's not about being perfect, it's about coming to realize that everything is perfect, exactly as it is. Right? These are very different positions.
The mind has the image of what a spiritual person should be, or image
Yes.
of where I should be, or something, all that should and shouldn'ts and stuff. I've spent a lot of time on the spiritual path with a should and shouldn't.
Yes. Should, ought to, and have to. These have to be eliminated from our thinking. Om Trayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardhanam Urvagamiva Bandhanam Mrityormukshiyamamritava Svaha Uva U Om Sat Jung Ham Om Namaste.